Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is finally out today, but leading up to this game's release, I decided to go through and watch all of the Indiana Jones films. Some of them I've seen before, some of them I haven't. But before we jump into that, welcome to Bite Size Bunny. My name's Tony, and today we are going to be ranking all of the Indiana Jones movies, so let's get to it. In last place, I've got Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's been a hot minute since I've seen a movie that left me feeling betrayed the way Dial of Destiny did, and man, does that feeling suck. This was my first time watching this movie, and I have to say, I was loving it for the first 40 minutes. I kind of got the same vibes that I got from Uncharted 4, where it's this last hurrah for this beloved adventurer, and you know, we're gonna get a proper send-off for them. Then around that 40 to 45 minute mark, there's an action sequence that takes place at an auction, and from that point forward, the film continuously spirals downhill until it hits rock bottom. It quickly makes sense though, once the film ends and you see the number of writers that were attached to this project, no wonder it jumped the shark. For the remaining 2 hours of the film, it is just one long obnoxious chase sequence with a few breaks here and there to kind of check in with the audience, to let us know why we're after this stupid dial in the first place, and do a whole lot of nothing with its characters. It's also apparent that those 2 hours are meant to be a trailer for where the franchise could go next without Harrison Ford, and it makes for a really awkward experience seeing as this is supposed to be his final film. He goes from being the star of the film to kind of getting sidelined, and it just feels kind of odd. To make matters worse, it all crescendos to a completely nonsensical ending that I was truly dumbfounded by. It goes so off the rails in that last 30 minutes, it almost feels unreal. It feels like a fake leaked ending that circulates online to get people angry at a movie before it even releases, but in this scenario, it's so much worse. Next up, we've got Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This was actually the first time I successfully made it all the way through this film. I had tried before, but never been successful. So, you know, here we go. Finally watched it, and oh boy, yeah, this was something. I would love to know the thought process behind this film. Like, was the goal simply, hey, we could do this and that and this, and then never stop to ask maybe we shouldn't do those things and reel it back in a bit? There are so many sequences in this movie that feel like they are solely there to show off the special effects and nothing else. Crystal Skull is so self-referential that it's almost comical with how goofy it gets, thanks to all the little nods they sneak in there to reference the previous films. At times, it feels like this movie was made by an algorithm. At this point in my Indiana Jones marathon, I realized that it was a mistake watching these movies back to back because, oh my lord, is it tedious at this point. Once the story revealed that we were gonna try and follow the same formula as Raiders again, I kinda just settled into my seat and started to regret all of my life choices. There's a couple of fun action sequences. Shia LaBeouf and Harrison Ford are really enjoyable to watch interact with each other, but that's about it. There were individual moments throughout Crystal Skull that gave me hope, but that hope was yanked away as fast as possible. This movie sucks. On to the next one. In third place, I've got The Last Crusade, and I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really like this one whatsoever. It just wasn't for me. It's not a bad movie. I can acknowledge from a technical standpoint that it's really well done. It's just not what I enjoy when it comes to Indiana Jones. I think this one takes itself way too seriously. It almost feels like after Temple of Doom, they decided they needed to dial it down a notch and make it more grounded and mature, but instead it just kind of feels full of itself. It totally forgot how to ride that fine line between grounded yet having a fun fantasy-like feel to the adventure. It doesn't help that The Last Crusade feels like total deja vu and just a not as good version of Raiders. As much as I like Sean Connery's performance, I didn't really care about the father-son dynamic or the family dynamic in general. It also takes forever for this movie to actually get going. It doesn't feel like it officially starts until 40 minutes in. In second place, I've got Temple of Doom. This feels like the Return of the Jedi equivalent of the Indiana Jones series, except with significantly more problematic elements that have aged horribly. Temple of Doom has its issues. It is not even close to being a perfect film, but I do think it at least has a fun, campy cheese factor to it. The action sequences are very over the top and enjoyable to watch. You can tell they're trying to raise the stakes from Raiders, but they managed to do it in a way that it doesn't feel so over the top that it just makes you want to roll your eyes. Harrison Ford seems extremely comfortable in this role, and he oozes charisma. You can tell he's found his his stride with the iconic adventurer, and he delivers a captivating performance. He really does carry this entire film, and his dynamic and chemistry with his co-stars feels very natural. Temple of Doom does have a lot of campy elements. Some of it feels pretty charming, some of it also feels like it's made exclusively to cater to children, which makes for some weird tonal whiplash, seeing as this film also includes a scene where a man's heart is ripped out of his chest, so it can be really jarring at times. It's also really hard not to cringe at the blatantly offensive stereotypes that are sprinkled throughout the adventure, which always took me out of the experience. And at number 1, I've got Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is one of those films that you sit down and watch, and when you're done with it, you think to yourself, yeah, no duh for why it's a classic. It's a fairly straightforward adventure story on paper, but it's done in such a way that makes it feel like a fun, lively experience that keeps it feeling fresh. Harrison Ford, John Rhys-Davies, and Karen Allen are so much fun to watch interact with each other. Anytime Harrison Ford is interacting with either of these two characters, the experience is immediately enhanced. The action has aged extremely well, and it's honestly really shocking to see what they were able to get away with back then while still maintaining that PG rating. There are some extremely brutal and violent deaths in this movie that would easily get it slapped with a rated R rating in 2024, and I'm not even exclusively referring to its nightmare fuel finale. Raiders has solid antagonists, with one of them being really creepy and unnerving to watch anytime he's on screen. And yeah, this is one of those pieces of cinema I think is a mandatory viewing experience. Everyone should see it at least once. It's not a masterpiece, but it is really cool to see what it did for the adventure genre, while also giving us this iconic hero that's so easy to love and root for. John Williams' score also adds so much personality to everything that's going on screen. Whether it's the theme song kicking in, two characters just sitting at a bar and talking to each other, or an epic chase sequence, it always blends perfectly with what's transpiring on screen, while also helping heighten the emotions of everything that's going on. And there is my official ranking of every movie in the Indiana Jones franchise. They're not all winners, but Raiders of the Lost Ark is still an absolute gem. In the meantime, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, and all that YouTube stuff. And how would you personally rank the Indiana Jones films? I would love to know.